Hello, all you fantastic cosmonauts. As always, I am Cosmic, and it's happened again. Yes, indeed, it has. Another great early access game has bit the dust. This time in the form of the latest MOBA style game, Smash and Grab. So we're left with one very simple question. What the F happened to Smash and Grab? So news earlier this week leaked out that United Front Games, who developed Sleeping Dogs and are currently or supposedly currently developing Smash and Grab, closed their doors on Monday following a free weekend on Steam for Smash and Grab. Now, this means that Smash and Grab, the new MOBA-style third-person action game, has been in early access less than 2 months before the developer has closed down. Now, United Front Games, as of this time recording, has not released an official statement, but we have had confirmation from several developers who basically have said that they are packing up their desks and the game is essentially dead. Now, as you would expect in such a case as this, there's a lot of unhappy people. Some people are sad that a game that they really enjoyed is going to be dying, or at least is pretty much dead at this moment. I myself gave the game a fairly favourable preview because I thought it was a really fun third-person action MOBA. I thought the combat was really good, and it had, as a multiplayer-focused game, it certainly had a lot of potential and was a lot of fun straight out of the box. However, clearly, the sales didn't really match up to the game's potential. Now, Steam Spy estimates that before the free trial weekend, we're probably looking at around 20,000 in terms of users, which probably, and Steam Spy is usually around 5% off, plus the fact you have key activations and giveaways. So let's say that they had roughly around 15,000 in sales since the beginning of early access. That's 15,000 for a multiplayer-focused game, which isn't a lot. Now, that isn't to say that the game wouldn't have found an audience later on, because I firmly believe that given enough time, the game would have certainly found a bigger audience over time with the addition of more features and such like. But obviously, it is now never going to get that chance. Now, of course, as always is the way with these things, alongside the sad news of developers being laid off and a good game being abandoned, there are cries of outrage and cries of sketchy things occurring and shady business practices. So let's talk about them. Now, everything I'm about to say is an educated guess at best. There's no concrete proof at this time, especially with the fact that there's not even an official statement from the company itself. What I have heard from speaking to some of the developers myself and seeing some of their comments on the Smash and Grab Discord chat is that a lot of the developers didn't know this was coming. A lot of the staff had no idea that this was the case. They were basically told to, from as far as it seems, that they basically went into work on Monday morning and then were told to clear out the desks. So this has come to a big shock to a lot of the staff at United Front Games. And it's interesting to see the reaction from the developers themselves. They're obviously not going into a lot of detail in terms of what's actually happened, what they've actually been told. A couple of the devs basically said, this is not an official statement, but I can tell you the news is real, and most of us are clearing out our desks. One of the developers did mention that they had tried to get investors to help them, but it was very doubtful and that the game is probably dead. They did say that the servers will still be up for a while, probably to the end of this month, but after that there will be essentially no online support for the game, which basically kills the game off straight because it is an online multiplayer game. But did United Front Games do anything that would be considered dodgy, sketchy, shady, etc., etc.? I have to say that I'm of two minds about this. I don't think as a company-wide, they try to do a smash and grab with people's money, so to speak, if you will excuse the pun. I don't think that is the case. From the people I've spoken to and the people's comments that I've seen, I think that a lot of the developers were genuinely behind the game. This wasn't something that they wanted to exploit. This was something that they really believed in and they wanted to see through to completion. That being said, for a company to go under 2 months into an early access soft launch, there's problems there. There's problems there that haven't just occurred overnight. And that means that somebody or a few people somewhere at the top end of United Front Games have known that something has been wrong for quite a while. And I'm looking at you, Stephen van der Mecht, who is the CEO. Now, I'm not saying that they purposefully launched into early access with the sole intention of taking people's money, knowing that they were going to go under. However, and this is a big however, you know your company's bleeding money. That's, as a person who runs their own business, and I have run several businesses of my own, I know when you know you're bleeding money, and there's no way you cannot know that you're losing money and that you're going to be in a very precarious position. And I've said this time and time again when it comes to video game developers, especially when it comes to independent developers like United Front Games are. Now, obviously, Sleeping Dogs had a publisher, which was Square Enix, so they had money that way, but they tried to do Smash and Grab as a completely independent company. They were developing and publishing it themselves. Now, that's very hard to do. Being an independent developer in modern industry is very difficult, and it can be very, very expensive. So you have to be prepared for that. And the fact is that I'm concerned that a couple of people knew this was coming for some time and didn't say anything to anybody, which to me is a little bit shady, and I'll tell you why. First off, it means that they were solely relying on an early access hit to stay solvent, to stay afloat, which is a giant no-no in any, doesn't matter what game, it doesn't matter if you're Square Enix, it doesn't matter if you're EA, it doesn't matter if you're the smallest indie to the biggest AAA, it does not matter. You cannot stake your company's future, your game's future, on sales from an early access launch. You can't. It is completely unpredictable, and it is not fiscally responsible. And I have said this time and time and time again to developers looking to go into the early access platform. The early access platform isn't a Kickstarter. It isn't, okay? Just so we're all clear on this. It is not a Kickstarter. This isn't crowdfunding. This is, you're putting the early stage of the game into early access for players to buy at their convenience if they want to help, test the game, give feedback, or play the game early. This isn't fund our project, right? That's not what early access is there for. And if the CEO and the higher-ups at United Front Games have went into this with the mentality of this is the way that we fund our project, it was never going to work from day one, in which case that is plain bad management. Second of all, you have not only updated the game several times since you've launched early access, but the closer we have come to this Monday where you've essentially closed the doors, you knew that was coming, right? There's no way you didn't know that you were going out of money on that day, because you do project, as a business person, you do fiscal projections all the time, and you regularly update those fiscal projections, right? So you knew that was coming. You knew probably weeks before, if not, let's say that you were ignorant. Let's say that you knew the week before, minimum, right? You knew that was coming, yet you still went ahead and ran a free weekend on Smash and Grab on Steam, which meant that people would come in, play the game, and if they liked it, buy it, which means people were going to buy the game the days before you knew you were going to close the doors. And furthermore, you were talking about Halloween updates, even though you knew that you were going to close the doors. Now, for me, this is where things get a little bit shaky in terms of how much I believe that nobody knew this was coming, because somebody had to know. And if somebody knew, right, then that somebody purposefully did not say anything so that they could run that free weekend, so that they could get more sales. Now, part of me thinks that, okay, they tried to do like a last-ditch attempt at getting a load of sales and getting a big hit. But that's, again, it's fiscally irresponsible, and it's just dumb. You know that that's not the way the industry works. Especially as a developer at United Front Games or as a businessman at United Front Games, you've shipped titles before, right? Like, you've shipped Sleeping Dogs. It's not like this is your first ever game. You know how the industry works. You know that was never going to happen. You know that was never going to happen. There's no way that would happen by a stroke of God that would not happen. So I don't understand why you went ahead and did that. Because to me, that is a little bit shady. That is a little bit ethically questionable. Because why would you then allow players to buy your game on that Steam free weekend, trying to attract more people to spend money and then literally pull the plug the day after? It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And that to me is a little bit shady. And I can understand if I was someone who had played the game on that free weekend, right? Because you played the game on the free weekend and you're like, oh, this is really good, I'm going to buy this. Oh, look, the Halloween update's coming soon as well. So that's content in the future, maybe in a week's time. So you're telling people that you're going to have content in a week or two down the line, and you're giving them a free trial. So you're bringing them in every way you can, knowing that you're going to close the door on Monday. I'm sorry, that is a little bit questionable. I'm not sure if I'm okay with that at all. Now, and I'm not blaming every developer here. I'm not blaming in fact, I'm not blaming United Front Games as a majority, because I know and I've spoken to several developers from United Front Games, and they're great people. They're really nice, hard-working, ethical people. But there's obviously some higher up management there that has made certain decisions that are not only ethically questionable, but frankly, outright misleading to consumers. Now, of course, alongside the announcement that the game was effectively dead comes the cry of refunds. Now, refunds are, for me, a fairly simple process, right? It's fairly simple. I think anyone who bought the game on that free weekend deserves a refund no matter how much they've played. I don't care if they played 10 hours that weekend, they deserve a refund. Because there's no way that you didn't know that you were shutting down the following week. There's no way you didn't know. So they deserve a refund flat out, regardless of how long they've played or anything. Those people deserve a refund flat out. There's no question about it. Anything before that, I would say that the majority of people don't deserve refunds in terms of there is always a risk with early access, and a lot of the people I've spoken to in terms of the community who have been talking about, I want a refund this game, you've lied to me and all this nonsense. They've played 30 hours plus already. Like, they've been since the beginning. They purchased the game since the beginning of early access, and they've played like 30 plus hours. Are you telling me you didn't get your money's worth out of that? There's no way you didn't get your money's worth at a $15 game. There's no way. People like that, I don't think they deserve the money. Now, the developers, I have seen a developer say that there is a possibility that refunds will be coming to everybody, but I highly doubt that's the case. But those people who bought the game in the week prior to the closure definitely deserve a refund. Now, either way, of course, at the end of the day, the game is dead. That's the way it is. United Front Games is probably closed. We have no official statement yet, but that's probably the case. And any way you look at it, there's no more smash and grab, regardless of the potential and how much of a fun game it was. The thing I want to close on, and I think that this is important given what we've just talked about in terms of the upper management being a little bit shady and questionable and possibly misleading people, is the fact that the majority of the game developers did not do that. And that's the fact of the matter. The majority of the video game developers were really trying hard to bring this game to people. They were really involved. I mean, it's one of the best community teams I've seen in a while in terms of community engagement, by setting up a community Discord, the developers actually interacting on that Discord, talking to people. And, a lot of those developers ultimately are also victims as well, because they've lost their jobs now. That's the way it is. There's, jobs that they've held for a couple of years. They've lost those jobs. They've been, came into work on a Monday morning and told, pack up your desk, you haven't got a job anymore. And, a lot of people have maybe lost $15, but they've lost an income and a job and security. And, I feel for them, because that's not fun at all. And that's a really unfortunate position to be in. And I hope that a lot of those developers who are very talented and are really nice people certainly land on their feet and they get picked up by other studios very, very quickly. So that is effectively what happened to Smash and Grab. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Let me know what you think happened in terms of what happened behind the scenes at United Front Games and why the game ultimately was cancelled. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, hit the share button, make sure to subscribe. And as always, I will see you next time.